and then they would speak Chinese. And I can 100% understand.
Yeah.
And they don't know that.
Secret power.
and sometimes when I'm like, they would talk, and then they would interact with me. And I was like, yeah, I can understand everything you say. And they're like,
yeah. Like, oh no. So honestly, like, I feel like in some sense we are like spies.
But in Asia, like a lot of the culture is, like in Chinese, we call 委婉, right?
Yes.
Like they're a bit more indirect. They
Yeah.
care more about the feelings of the other person.
不好意思.
Yeah, a lot of
不好意思.
不好意思.
Yeah, 不好意思.
When I speak Chinese, I feel like I'm more childish than I am in English. And I'm
that.
able to express myself a lot better in English, like express thoughts and
Yes.
like opinions, ideas,
Concepts.
better in English than in Chinese. Like in Chinese, I struggle so much. Like, I'm like, wait, you don't understand. Like,
I'm so smart.
I know what I'm talking about. Trust me. But I sound like a 3-year-old.
All right, guys, welcome back to FUNDAY Chat. My name is Wade, and we have our guest, Oceana, and she's half Taiwanese and half American. And so on this episode, we would love to dive deeper into the identity background. And perhaps, like myself, maybe we've also gone through some identity crisis and things we had to figure out, but we would like to dive deeper into this aspect. And so welcome back, Oceana.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's start off with, I think it's always interesting when we talk about mixed race people, and people typically can't really pinpoint where we're from exactly. And why would they? It's so hard, right? You can honestly put two mixes of anything. And,
Yeah, that's true.
and so I think mixed people are typically racially ambiguous, but you can kind of guess like, oh, they probably like maybe half white, half black, or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Personally, I get everything. The one I get the most is Middle Eastern.
Yeah. I can
or
see that.
Latino, you know. What do you get? What do people say you are?
Yeah, so I've gotten a lot of different things that sometimes I'm not even like mixed up.
Yeah.
So I mean, I would say usually most people do get it right, like white, like Asian, basically like white Asian.
That's true. Yeah, you fall into that Asian category.
So like most people, I would say most people do get it right. There are a lot of people though that just think I'm fully white, or I have also gotten some people that think I'm just Asian. But like I don't know, like maybe because you know there's a lot of Asians that kind of look a little bit Asian as well.
That's true. That's
like people
true.
from like Xinjiang. Or,
Yeah.
So like I've gotten a lot of that too.
Wow.
But I've also gotten some like really random ones that I'm not mixed of. Like so I've gotten like Indian. Like
I could see maybe a mix.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe like a little mix of Indian.
Or I've gotten also like a Latina. Like I'm not sure which country specifically, but I've also gotten that as well.
Latina look. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always make people guess, but they can never guess it right.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's always so funny to like figure out what are you.
Yeah.
So along the same lines, if I'm sure, especially being in Taiwan, we get asked a lot, especially once you reveal that you speak Mandarin. I think people are like, where are you from?
Oh yeah.
What mix are you? Like, because they can then tell like you're 混血儿, right? And they're like, oh, so what are you? So I know many of my friends have answered this question countless times.
Yeah.
And they have just said, you know, like, they just have to spout out literally their whole timeline.
Yeah.
So for you, can you do that one last time for us?
Okay.
And what I would recommend is in the future, if people ask you the question, tell them to look up FUNDAY Chat and then give them this clip.
Okay.
And you'll be like done for it. So what would that be?
Okay. So I was born in New York. And then I moved to San Francisco when I was about 5. And then I moved to Taiwan when I was 9. So I moved to Taiwan with my mom. My mom's from Taiwan and my dad's from New York. And so they met in New York though, because my mom was working there.
Yeah.
And so I came to Taiwan with my mom at the age of 9 because my mom kind of wanted to, you know, take care of her family and stuff like that. She's the eldest.
Okay.
And yeah, so that was kind of like the first time like actually experiencing Taiwan, because I have been to Taiwan like visiting when I was really young.
Right.
And I honestly don't remember anything. And I didn't speak the language either. I didn't speak Chinese back then. So yeah, when I first came to Taiwan, I was like, you know, just still trying to learn the language. It was the first time learning the language, connecting with the culture and all that. And then I finished elementary school. I went back to the States when I was about 14, 15. And then I was there for high school. And then I went to Canada, Toronto. I went to University of Toronto for 3 years because I graduated early.
Wow, good job. Overachiever.
And then since then, I came back to Taiwan to work, and I'm also doing my master's program.
Wow. Okay, so that's your timeline.
That's my life story.
There you go. Stop asking. Kidding.
Stop asking.
Kidding. I personally enjoy kind of like sharing my story. And obviously, if it's with people that you know better, then you give them extra details. But people always are curious because I myself, I'm curious as well. Like, how do two people from complete different cultures end up meeting and falling in love and having kids? Like, it's such a, especially back in the day, it would have been so much harder. Today, I'm like, oh yeah, it happens all the time. But back then, I just couldn't imagine. Sometimes they didn't even speak each other's language. So that's something.
Well, I think because my mom went to the States when she was like 20-something. Early 20s after she graduated from university in Taiwan. So when she went there, she had to start learning English from essentially scratch. And
at 20.
That's essentially late, scratch. And then she, started going into the workforce. She worked a lot, career woman. And then afterwards, she eventually felt like, she wanted to settle down, because she loves children, so she wanted to have kids. And essentially she met my dad, and they were already in like their late 30s. Because my mom had me when she was quite late.
Later,
Yeah.
But you turned out fine, so.
I did turn out fine. I turned out okay.
Yeah.
Acceptable. Passable.
Okay to the eye. All right, so being a mixed person, or like coming from two different backgrounds, and having lived overseas, what do you feel like it's like to live in Taiwan as a 混血儿, right? And because I know personally, living in Taiwan as a mix versus, let's say, America or even South Africa, very different.
Yeah.
So what has that been like for you?
Because in Taiwan, it's like actually I would say in a lot of Asian countries too. It's just like, it's like a separate identity. Like it's a specific tag that that's on you.
Right.
And so like, I know, cause I'm in the entertainment industry. And so like when they're looking for specific like looks or roles, they would specifically say like, 混血儿, like I want a mixed person.
Right.
Or like, it's like a specific identity. Or like, even when they look at me and the first thing they're like, are you mixed? Are you mixed?
Yeah.
And it's quite different here. Versus like in the States, I would say it's kind of just normal because I mean a lot of people are mixed. It's a very diverse mixed society, so they're not gonna like explicitly ask me like, oh, are you mixed? Like, are you mixed up?
It's not a big deal.
It's not a big deal. And then afterwards, I mean, I would say most of the people that I know in the States know that I'm mixed. I think it's just something that they would gradually figure out because I speak the language like there's cultural aspects to it. But in Taiwan, it's like the very first thing is, oh, you're a mix.
That's like what you would be known for.
Your tag. And so I think it's quite different in Asia. And I personally don't really view myself as like a special thing, like 混血儿. Like I don't really think of myself as like I recognize that I'm mixed, but it's not like a specific identity that I think about day to day. Like it's like, I don't know, like I don't really think of it as, I would think of it more as like a cultural thing to me. Like I think of it as more like, oh yeah, like culturally speaking, I'm Western and then also Eastern, like Asia. And yeah.
But in terms of your like your outer appearance, you don't think like, oh, I'm a mixed person?
Not really. Like I don't
That's not like the forefront.
Like
Okay, I get you.
Yeah.
I think on a day-to-day too, when you're going about your daily life, especially overseas, it's not even a thing that you're like, oh, I gotta be aware or I have to explain myself. I think the reason why it's so emphasized here is because you constantly get asked the question, are you mixed? Or when you do speak Mandarin, like, oh, why is your Mandarin so good? That kind of thing. So it's always opportunities here that brings up that side of us.
But the thing is, like, even with language and culture, because in my head, I think it's also because, you know, I was born in a more like diverse society in the States. So in my head, it's like language and culture is not because I'm mixed. Like being mixed doesn't automatically make you like fluent in Chinese.
Yes.
And like I learned it when I was 9.
Right.
Like I came here, I didn't speak Chinese for like the first almost 10 years of my life, right?
That's interesting. Did your mom choose not to speak to you in Mandarin?
Well, she didn't especially like choose not to. It was more of just like
being where you guys were.
Yeah, I think it was the environment, and also because she was in the States for like almost 20 years before she even had me.
Yeah.
And so it was partially environment. And I also think like she thought it was difficult to like teach a kid, like just herself, like at home. She thought it might be too hard. So
to do both languages.
Yeah. Yeah, so she didn't teach me Chinese when I was a
Wow.
kid. But I did go to like a Cantonese elementary school.
Oh, okay.
For like 2-3 years.
Okay.
And I didn't learn anything.
Yeah. I know there's many Chinese schools around, and even in South Africa as well. And unfortunately, like it's just playtime for us.
No, actually, because actually there's 2 different schools that I went to. It's like a Chinese like Saturday school or Sunday school or whatever, which I didn't learn anything from. Yeah. And then I also went to like my elementary school. My elementary school was a bilingual school. It was like English and Cantonese.
Wow.
And so I can understand a little bit of Cantonese.
讲广东话，好犀利。
广东话, yeah.
Okay.
So a tiny bit, but yeah.
Wow. All right, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So when I came to Taiwan, like I had to start from like
that is actually crazy though, to start at that age.
Yeah.
And to go through
I cried
learning Mandarin. Because I basically the opposite, and I learned English when I had to move back to South Africa. But I would say English is easier than Mandarin for sure.
I would say it is easier. Yeah.
Again, you turned out fine.
Acceptable.
Yeah, acceptable. So okay, now that you've been a part of 2 cultures, because you've lived here for a couple of years as well now, how do you adapt to each culture? Let's say when you're here in Taiwan, do you feel like you have to change certain mannerisms? Do you feel like you're a different person, a different personality comes out, versus when you're back in, Western countries like America or even Canada? It's different.
It is, especially communication. Like that, I would say for me, that's like the number one thing. That's like the biggest difference, because in North America or a lot of Western societies, it's kind of just like you're like whatever you think you can say.
So very direct.
Very direct to some degree, right? But in Asia, like a lot of the culture is like in Chinese we call 委婉, right?
Yes.
Like they're a bit more indirect. They care more about the feelings of the other person or whatever.
不好意思.
Yeah, a lot of 不好意思. Yeah. So I would say like in China, when I'm speaking Chinese, I would say that comes in a little bit, but still, like even with my...
You translate it from like your personality translates?
Yeah, it does translate. Because like when I'm with like my local friends and I say like something that's really direct and they're like, oh my God, like why would you say that? Oh my goodness.
Why are you so mean? 不好意思.
She doesn't know, I'm sorry. No, sometimes it's, but I think mostly they just think it's funny. Like they're like, oh, she would say that? Oh, damn.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, so that kind of bleeds into my Asian personality.
I see.
But another thing that I noticed is that because I learned Chinese from ages 9 to 14, and then I kind of like stopped learning Chinese afterwards, like in an educational setting.
Right.
So when I speak Chinese, I feel like I'm more childish than I am in English. And I'm able to express myself a lot better in English, like express thoughts and like opinions. Ideas. Concepts. Better in English than in Chinese. Like in Chinese, I struggle so much. Like, I'm like, wait, you don't understand. Like,
I'm so smart.
I know what I'm talking about, trust me, but I sound like a 3-year-old.
Yeah, we talked about this before.
Yeah.
It is so relatable because I stopped at 12 and I and then it's been Western society and I've grown. I've learned stuff.
Yeah.
I know things.
Yeah.
And I try to like explain that in Mandarin, and without the vernacular, unfortunately, it doesn't land the same.
Yeah.
So that has been a struggle.
Your thoughts have outgrown your language ability.
Now, has that improved over time?
I would say that has improved. Okay. Yeah, that has improved, especially since I've been back for like 2 years or so.
Yeah. So the adapting part for sure, I experienced similar stuff, but I think it's harder for me to translate from like my Western and my true personality into Mandarin, because I feel like the Mandarin aspect, while I was here when I was young, I really had a solid base. So it was like something ingrained. So I was already like, oh, when I'm in an Asian surrounding or setting, be very respectful, be very, respect the elders. And that's great stuff. I think it's good things. But there's certain things that even now for me, it's a little too much. Like I also want to have conversations, I also want to like facilitate and let people talk about certain things. But sometimes, at the dinner table with everyone, you're like, oh, but it's not my place. Or like, or maybe I can't express myself. And so those things hold me back.
Yeah. I mean, I do try my best to kind of blend those two personalities and be like more true to myself. Exactly. I do try that. Yeah. That's
good. I think for me, over time, it is just gaining the vernacular, gaining the words, gaining the concepts, and then actually being able to express it. So with time, it does help. Yeah, for sure. All right. So have you ever, though, struggled with reconciling the two identities? I know maybe you didn't think much about it when you were younger, but now that you're here in Taiwan, like, do people see you and then they don't really understand the American side, or when you're here, they're like, no, we don't think you're Taiwanese enough? Like, how do you?
For sure. Like, I would say in Taiwan, I have gotten, so there was a parent that messaged me on Instagram, and she has mixed children, and she was telling me how people, I think like Taiwanese people, would tell her kids that they're not Taiwanese, that they're white. And she was asking me like how I experienced that, because she knows I'm mixed as well. And I told her, like, honestly, unfortunately, I also kind of experienced that to some degree. Like, I've also had people that tell me, like, no, you're a foreigner.
Yeah.
Like, and that sentence comes right after the sentence where I say I'm mixed. Like, I'm half Taiwanese. They would say, no, you're a foreigner. No, you're white.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, it's like you don't really have the right to kind of denounce or deny a part of my identity. But at the same time, I also kind of try to understand why they would say that.
Yes.
And my understanding, at least my assumption, would be, well, because they can hear like the way I talk or, the way I think is different from them.
Right.
Just because of my childhood is a bit different.
Is different. Yeah.
And so, like, to them, they would think, well, she doesn't sound like me. She doesn't talk like me, even though I do speak Chinese.
Right.
Like, my opinions are different, whatever. My viewpoint is different, right? Yeah. So they would think, oh, well, she kind of fits into that foreigner category. Yeah. Like, she's not exactly like me. Yep. Right. So, yeah, I can kind of understand why. But it does hurt sometimes.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, sometimes I would feel like, honestly, I mean, because I learn a lot of traditional arts.
Yes.
I play the guzheng, right?
Talked about that the last episode.
Yeah, I play the zither, and I've been playing it since I was 10.
Like, I don't know how many people actually still do.
Exactly.
Yeah, which is crazy.
And I also learned, like, calligraphy, like Chinese calligraphy.
Sufa,
and also 水墨画, too.
Wow.
So, yeah, I would, and I mean, I miss Taiwan.
Yeah.
So I feel like honestly, a lot of aspects to me are quite Asian.
Yes.
Yeah.
So at some points, you do feel like sometimes you have to prove yourself to them. Well, not necessarily to them, but like, I guess.
Honestly, I don't prove myself to them because I know in my
confident in who you are.
Like in my head, I know that I have that Taiwanese part of me inside. So like, I don't really bother proving them wrong.
Yeah.
Like I speak the language. I know the culture.
Yep.
I don't know what your problem is.
Well, you know what? I think everybody, it's the amount of exposure that one person might have. Yeah. And I think for many very traditional people who haven't really come to the idea that like there can be these diverse people or people that might come from different backgrounds from what we are, but still feel that they are completely part of this culture. Yeah. That's where they can really reconcile that. Yeah. And that's why I think I appreciate conversations like this, or even people like us, just because I think we recognize each other and we see like, hey, I understand what you had to maybe go through growing up and having these questions or like having to prove yourself in a certain way. But I think that is true. When you're younger, you try to prove yourself in a sense because you want to be a part of the people. But over time, you're like, I'm confident. I just have to be confident in who I am. You can't let everyone or make everyone accept you. You just be who you are.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Cool. Well, so how has your perspective on identity help you understand and connect with other people from different backgrounds? Because again, like I said, it's easy for us to connect. Like I have other multiple mixed race friends, and always we click just because, I mean, I don't have to explain like, hey, when I was small, this,
exactly.
It's like they get it. So how do you feel like though, like having this background helps you connect with other people?
I would say like you said, I do connect easier with fellow mixed people or people that come from multicultural backgrounds. Yeah. So when I say like, there's, in my opinion, there's a difference between like being mixed and multicultural, because you could you don't necessarily have to be mixed. You can you can grow up in different
ABC,
societies. Exactly, ABC, or you just moved a lot or stuff like. So I usually connect well with people that have similar experiences. And I think it's not just the fact that, oh, you like relate to me in our upbringing or whatever. I think it's also just having a more like, sometimes in many ways like an international viewpoint of things.
Right. More global minded.
Yeah, global minded sometimes. Yeah. So I definitely would say I connect easier with people like that. But I think also the beauty of being mixed is that you can also connect with, like, you know, at least in my case, I connect with people from Asia, and then I also connect with people from, you know, North America, because I can also relate to their cultures as well, like even if they're locals. Yeah.
Do you feel like you're more accepted by one culture versus the other? Because again, I think maybe not that people aren't accepting specifically, but maybe in one culture, again, they're more exposed, so maybe they don't even care, but by not caring, are they accepting? It doesn't necessarily equate, but do you feel like you're more accepted by one culture?
Honestly, I don't necessarily, because I'm someone that kind of stopped caring about how people perceive me and whether people accept me or not. So that's not really something that I observe from my day-to-day life, to be honest. But I would say, like, in the States, they're kind of just used to it. Yeah. So they don't really think, oh, like, you're a specific race or you're from a specific background, from a specific culture. It's kind of just normal. In Taiwan, you will have people that don't like a certain part of me. Maybe like they don't like the westernized part. Like they think like, So like in Taiwan, there are some people that are like that. Yes. But I don't know. I feel like in general, I would say people from Taiwan are also quite like open-minded and accepting of people from all walks of life. Like I would say in general, Taiwan's pretty accepting. So I wouldn't say like either culture is more accepting. I would just say like you're gonna get hate from people in both societies. And I have learned to just ignore it and live my life.
And I guess it's not necessarily about one culture or the other. It's more the people that you surround yourself with.
Yes, the people you surround yourself with is very important. Yes.
So it depends more on, you know, where they're at. Have they exposed themselves to different cultures? Are they more aware? Are they more accepting, tolerant? So hopefully with conversations like this, people that maybe didn't understand much can in the future be more, you know, aware.
But I would say like with internationalization, globalization, that gradually will happen through time. Yeah. I think that's just given. Yeah. Like people are just going to be more...
We're already so globalized.
And compared to several years ago, I would say like society as a whole is just more accepting of other people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because of that. So,
So we are moving towards the right direction.
Yeah. And I think with that, I would say the first thing to like certain races accepting certain races or certain cultures accepting certain cultures, the first step is to understand the other person. I think a lot of like hate or fear comes from misunderstanding. Like they don't understand.
We're scared of the unknown.
Yeah, humans are naturally scared of the unknown. So when they see someone that is like
different.
totally different to them. They're not exposed to that often.
Yep.
They would just naturally kind of have defenses up, or
it's tribalism.
Yeah. So that's natural, but I think with globalization, that will gradually decrease.
Yeah, that's good. And I think that's why for us as mixed kids, like we are sort of a bridge, hopefully to two worlds that allow two groups of people from different cultures and backgrounds coming together. And I think when they can, and usually maybe they don't accept you right away or even each other right away, but more understanding and more awareness, you know, you realize we're all bones, flesh.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I feel like my upbringing in different cultures has actually taught me that there like cultures can affect how people behave, how people think. At the end of the day, honestly, humans are all humans. Like we're all the same.
Absolutely.
Like you would be surprised how like so many similarities but across cultures.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I definitely think we have more in common than things that divide us. And the scary part is just when we hyper focus on our differences.
On the differences, yeah.
Well, okay. To end off here for us, what is one benefit of being mixed race that you think people are not aware of?
Kind of like what I said of, you know, growing up in different cultures, I'm able to relate to different people that come from all walks of life. I think that's honestly a gift that I view it as a gift.
For sure.
Like I view it as a gift. Me being able to, I guess, empathize with different people from different cultures, different, you know, worlds.
Yeah.
And so, I think that is a gift that I really, really value as a mixed person. Yeah.
You want to know mine?
What?
I think for me, being mixed, especially in Taiwan, and I would say my Taiwanese side is not as obvious. Maybe I think for you, people would make, you know, they would observe it, but mine is not that obvious. So I think one of the big benefits is I can be a foreigner when I want to be a foreigner, and I can be a Taiwanese when I want to be a Taiwanese, actually.
That made me think. So I think for me it's the opposite. I had the opposite experience. Okay, what I mean by opposite is in a different country. So when I was in Canada, I went to University of Toronto. There's a lot of students, international students, especially from China. And when they see me, like they would just kind of view me as, oh yeah, she's just a local, whatever. And then they would speak Chinese, and I can 100% understand. And they don't know that.
Secret power.
and sometimes when I'm like, like they would talk, and then they would interact with me, and I was like, I can understand everything you say. And they're like,
like, oh no. Yeah. So honestly, like, I feel like in some sense we are like spies. Because honestly, almost every country that I go to, people to some degree assume I'm a local. So like visited Israel, spoke to me in Arabic, visited Egypt, same thing, visited Mexico, visited like all these countries. They're just like local. And I was like, you know what?
I would say you have a more ambiguous look than I do.
The thing is, I look like a Middle Eastern person, right? So yeah, to some degree, I'm ambiguous, but it's like I can also be one thing. You know? No. So if I said I'm mixed, then you're like, okay, a mix of what? They don't know. But
well, that's what I mean. Like you're ambiguous to the point where you can kind of fit into any box.
Yeah, I guess. So for those who want a middle-looking Eastern kid, if you're Taiwanese, marry a South African Indian. Because that's what you get. All right, and the last thing to end off here, what lesson about our identity and inclusion would you want to share with the future generation? And maybe a different ways of phrasing that would be, you know, what's something in your personal walk and journey would you want to share with a fellow mixed kid that's growing up and maybe questioning their identity and not sure, who am I?
So kind of like what I said earlier about, you know, the mother of the mixed kids that reached out to me, like, because I was kind of telling her I experienced the same thing, and I can understand that, you know, from a child's point of view, that's extremely hard to hear, honestly, to say like, oh, you're not Asian,
to be
you're
denied.
White, or to be denied. But I don't know, as someone that has experienced that and probably will continue to experience that, I just keep trying to remind myself that you know, identity is honestly just all like a construct and a perception. And people are going to have perceptions of you. And honestly, you can't really change that. And this goes with identity, but also everything else too. Like people are going to have perceptions of you.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Including with your personality or like anything. So, I mean, but at the same time, you can't really let it affect you because, like everyone's going to have a different, a different you in their mind.
Existing in someone's mind.
Yeah. And they're not gonna be exactly the same. Like the real you and the version in someone's mind is never gonna be the exact same. Right. And there's thousands of you.
Yeah.
So like, don't worry about how people perceive you. Honestly, like just be comfortable with yourself. And I think one thing that I'm still learning to this day is that like, you're never really gonna understand who you are. That's actually a lifelong process. Right. And you're never really going to get to the very end because I mean, every day you're going to have experiences that slightly change you. And through time, you might have a totally different viewpoint on something. You might have totally different behaviors depending on who you interact with. Right. So the process of learning yourself and knowing yourself is like a lifelong thing, a lifelong journey. So honestly, just have fun with it. Yeah. Like every day, try to observe something about yourself. And this is what I learned through acting, actually, because I'm an actor. And so, like, just every day, observe things about yourself, observe things about, like, the people around you, and kind of get to know yourself, honestly, because it's a process, and you're never going to get there, but it's fun.
Yeah. Well, that's good advice. And I think it basically encapsulates that life is a journey, right? And I think for us as individuals, it can be a journey of discovery of who you are. And you know, you do things, you might enjoy some, you might not enjoy some, you make mistakes, you learn from some, you don't learn from some. Like, it's all just part of the process. And
it is.
Yeah, I think that's a great advice to give, even if you're a mixed kid. Don't hyper-focus maybe on what people might say that you are this or you are that. Like, be confident in who you are. Because all of us, even if you're mixed, your background growing up still looks different to mine, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so all of our stories are all different, but you know, it ultimately all intertwines into this thing called life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that is some good stuff. We thank you so much for coming in today and sharing about, you know, identity, and we wish you everything of the best for your future and your acting career and stuff. And maybe, do you have anything you want to plug or promote? Like, where can people find you?
Oh, well, on Instagram. Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, Oceana, so ocean with an A, and then another XH, like X in X-ray, H as in happy. It's actually because 小孩. But you don't know Pinyin,
Mandarin.
so.
But I know Mandarin.
But you don't know Pinyin.
But I
so
know
in
Mandarin.
Pinyin, 小孩 is X and then H.
Okay.
Anyway, so yeah, you can find me there on Instagram. And, you know, I have a lot of projects. I just finished Miss International, the international competition. And this year I'm doing a movie. I can't really go into details, but that'll be fun. So you can follow me on Instagram, keep up with my updates.
Cool.
And remember to have fun through the process.
Nice. And yeah, do keep up and support Xiao Hai.
Thank you.
Oceana. So thank you again for being here. And we hope you enjoyed and learned something and hope this was insightful. And we'll see you on the next episode. Bye.